This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Anybody got a small boat? Tropical storm Philippe dropped another 2 feet of water on our transmitter property. Yikes! Will the rainy season please go away? Thank you. Time for Money Info, brought to you by Princeton Research. Mike King in Las Vegas and Charles Moscowitz in Beantown, which also got hit by Tropical Storm Philippe. Is that correct, Charles?
You know, we didn't have that much in the way of rain, but the winds were unbelievable.
Yeah.
All you see on the local news is, you know, this 400-year-old tree toppled and, you know, that. And, of course, I guess north and west of here, they've actually canceled Halloween till Friday night because there are so many power outages. I think something like 200,000 and change. And the areas where the damage was the worst are not that sparsely, you know.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mike. Barry Weiner here.
Hey, Barry.
Good morning. Barry Weiner, ENZO BIOCHEM.
Yes. Yeah. How are things going, Barry?
Things are moving very well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
How much damage did you have in New York?
Actually, not as much as was predicted. Strong winds, a lot of power outages sporadically around the region, but nothing that was consequential in any way, fortunately.
Yeah, because Charles was talking about some of the damage up in the Boston area. Anything out on Long Island, or did they come out of this okay?
Yeah, a lot of sporadic power outages, some trees down, but it certainly wasn't as bad as they reported in Massachusetts. I know the Worcester, Auburn area got hit quite significantly. So
they canceled Halloween for the kids till Friday.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, you know, these weather events are just crazy. I mean, you know, we still haven't been able to get in to fix our hurricane damage from Irma because the tower site is virtually underwater now. And it's like, and all you can do is let it dry out. You know, it's amazing. It's we've taken a year's worth of rain in a matter of just, say, 3 or 4 weeks. It's amazing. I can't even imagine what Puerto Rico's dealing with now. But anyway, tell us what's going on at ENZO BIOCHEM. It's been a while since we've had you on.
Well, we've had quite a strong run over the last 18 months to 24 months in terms of executing on our strategy. There has been a significant disruption in the market, as everyone is aware in the healthcare world, in terms of pricing and reimbursement and uncertainty in the healthcare system. I mean, this is a major topic both in Washington, and it trickles down right to the individual in every locality. We are
I'm shocked, Barry. I'm shocked that you would say such a thing. I thought the healthcare system was wonderful.
Well,
you know,
as long as you're not sick.
That's it, Charles. Oh my God!
You know, it's getting more difficult to navigate. But as a service provider, as a product provider, a developer and deliverer of unique molecular diagnostics, as a provider of clinical laboratory services throughout the region and soon to be nationwide, we are deep into it. And what we have seen is wherever there is disruption and challenge, there is opportunity. And that's really what we have been driving toward. As some of you who have listened to me in the past or perhaps know what ENZO is doing, we are a developer of molecular diagnostic tests. These are the most innovative and impacting types of tests that deliver information that is really critical in the diagnosis, the treatment, the prediction of how disease will evolve over time. And I think, when one thinks back into what a diagnostic process is, it is really the pathway into the healthcare system, because it is the portal through which you must cross that really drives the treatment cycle, the therapeutic product delivery, and also the oversight that ultimately will be driven. So it's the most critical component at the onset, and it's also a very critical component in controlling costs, because it has the capability to triage an individual through the healthcare system in the most cost-efficient and effective way, not only monetarily, but also from the perspective of human need and the receiving of healthcare processes. So ENZO, over the last 25, 30 years, has been a major contributor to more efficient, cutting-edge diagnostics. We were the first to develop a product for human papillomavirus, which is utilized in pap smears to help women screen out the risk of cervical cancer. Over the last few years, we have licensed our platform technologies to Siemens, to Life Technologies, to Illumina, to Affymetrix, to Agilent, to provide them with platforms from which they can develop more advanced diagnostics as well. But the real strategic change that took place at ENZO a few years back was the realization that the reimbursement structure in healthcare, specifically for diagnostics, is going through a contraction. Reimbursements are being cut. Medicare is threatening to cut their diagnostic reimbursement to the clinical lab industry about 10% a year over the next 3 years. That means 10% each of the next 3 years, which will be quite devastating to clinical labs. It really functionally takes out the profit margin for many of these tests. So the clinical lab industry is in a challenging state. And what we have focused on and what we are embarking on is the development and delivery of low-cost molecular tests in either a product form, which we will sell as a product to clinical labs to utilize to do their diagnostic testing, or provide via our clinical laboratory a reference lab service in which these labs around the nation will just send us their specimens, and we will be able to run them and deliver a diagnostic result back to them at a cost structure that is less than they would pay for the reagents alone to perform the test if they were doing it themselves. So we are morphing into a business that will provide low-cost products and services targeting the most cutting-edge side of the diagnostic industry. That's the molecular side, and these are tests that are used to determine the amount of virus if you have hepatitis C or B or HIV in your system. We recently, last week, just announced the New York State approval of a panel of tests towards women's health needs. And this is a panel, a single vaginal swab that will be able to determine 13 different infectious diseases from one sample. Very cost efficient, very comprehensive, probably one of the most comprehensive in the market. And from one sample, we will be able to determine diseases such as bacterial vaginitis, fungal infections, chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomona. And the efficiency, because we're able to do it from one sample, makes it extremely cost efficient. Also, we have a unique capability in that ENZO is a vertically integrated diagnostic company. What I mean by that is that we not only develop, manufacture, platform our own products, but we are able to provide both product and services because we are one of the largest independent clinical laboratories in the New England and the New York State region. So we are unique in that we can provide it as a service, or we can provide it as a kit or a product. And there are not many entities around that I'm aware of that can do that. So we have a unique position. We have a marketplace that is in extreme need right now. And I think we have unique products that will address that need. And I should comment that the ability to make these different platforms, and we have multiple platforms. There are 5 that we're working on right now that will address different aspects of diagnostic testing, is a result of many years of product development, intellectual property, or patent development. As a company, we have over 250 patents, probably another 200 pending. The intellectual property within ENZO has been a key component of our ability to operate with freedom without having to license or pay royalties to others. Interestingly, our intellectual property estate last year brought in close to $75 million of income or return to us. So it's been a very valuable aspect to which we are applying to these new products and platforms as we move out. So we're at
Just
a very
curious,
important stage.
On your intellectual properties, this is Charles, I'm sorry.
Yes.
On your intellectual property, how do you monitor these things? I mean, there are an infinite number of companies that make everything from, top name drugs to the generics. Is it possible to really protect your intellectual properties? I mean, what's the process by which you would find out that, some joker in Montana is making a generic version of yours?
Well, it's not even generic. It's basically utilizing our technological capability within their platforms. Science is fairly transparent because, most of these products have to be approved by regulatory sources, either the FDA or CLIA, which is the Clinical Lab Association. Mm-hmm. So we are able to, see the process. We can understand it. Right. Obviously, you can't patrol every, product that's put out there by every entity, but the major market products are visible, and we are also one of the largest users of products globally because of the scale of our clinical laboratory. So we have a window into this market, which is a practical window as well as an academic window. So Barry, we're able to strongly watch what's going on.
So, Barry, I take it you're not too concerned about whitefish, ENZO, then? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm certainly not.
Now, how many... Go ahead.
Go ahead, please. I'm listening.
Yeah. How many actual competitors? Now, the swab thing sounds absolutely amazing. And how many competitors do you have out there, or are there any? Are you unique?
Well, this is a unique test. I mean, there are single tests that will test for these different diseases, but the key is economics.
Sure.
We are able to do it at a cost structure, which is less because we manufacture. We don't have the overhead that others have. The whole issue for us is not to sell high science, but to sell economics. The fact that these products are high science is a value added, but for the clinical labs, the products that exist today are very adequate to do the job. The only challenge you have is the economics of them they're just not compelling, and labs can't return a profit. I mean, the average profit margin of many of these labs keeps, sinking, and at a point, the overhead structure is just going to drive them into a consolidation or to go out of business. So our products are really targeting a cost sale, and I think that has been well received. I mean, economics are the key driving issues of clinical labs today, and we are able to produce these at a very low cost. And there's a key issue here. Historically, the diagnostics market has been driven by a razor blade model. And what I mean by that is every company typically produces a dedicated instrument that will only run on its dedicated reagents. And it's a way to lock in the future flow of reagents. And so what companies tend to do is they tend to amortize the cost of the machine into the reagent cost. It's called a reagent rental type of structure. And as a result, that drives up the cost of the product, the diagnostic kits or reagents, to the clinical laboratories. We have been able to design many of these products to run on an open channel on existing equipment within given laboratories. So we're able to avoid that additional cost overlay onto the products. And that's been a very important aspect of our strategy and the approach that we're using. So we've looked at every angle to drive the cost structure down, and our goal here is to produce lines of these panels. Example, I spoke to you of a women's health panel. The second panel to emerge will be a viral load panel that will be testing for HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. We have a cancer panel following that. We have an upper respiratory panel, an opportunistic infection panel for things such as MRSA. So these panels will be emerging over time, and the uniqueness will be the cost efficiency of them. And the important aspect here is that we are driving a message to our industry that you have 7,500 independent labs in the United States today, approximately. All of them do not need to be processing the same diagnostic tests. The most efficient and cost-beneficial way will be to centralize the testing, if you can centralize it in a way where you will be able to make a profit by referencing that test to another centralized lab such as ENZO. And our message is very simple. You can make money by running the test in-house. You can make more money by referencing it out and focusing on marketing and sales and building your revenue volumes. Take away the overhead of production from yourself as long as you can do it in an efficient way that allows you to make money. It's a very different paradigm for this industry, but I think it's a paradigm that is moving across many industry groups. I mean, you look at what Amazon is doing in terms of taking out the retailer. You look at so many of the different aspects of how can you create cost efficiency in our economy, and that is by removing the different layers of either manufacturing or selling or processing and centralizing them in a more efficient, cost-beneficial way. And this is what we hope to do in the clinical laboratory marketplace.
That sounds amazing, Barry. You know, it is truly amazing, and I don't know how anybody really functions. I got the Medicare book, and you look, and the reimbursements, as you said, are down pretty dramatically again for the testing, and you just kind of shake your head. And how in the world, as a business, do you plan? I mean, how do you plan long term when you've got such a screwed up medical system now, which is probably going to get a lot worse in the next 18 months?
Well, this is a challenge. It's an absolute challenge, and that is why our business model is very simple. It's provide low-cost solutions for labs, hospital labs, regional clinical labs, independent labs around the country. It's about cost. We are driving to the lowest cost solution to provide people with profit capability. And, what we see from our peers out there, and we're not only a producer of this, we are a participant because we do run one of the most efficient women's health labs in the New York, Connecticut, moving into Massachusetts area right now. So we understand the dynamics of the industry intimately. We are able to, understand what the challenges we will be facing as they are emerging because of our structure, and at the same time, we are addressing the solutions which we will use not only internally, but also provide to those outside. And I think the most important demonstration of the effectiveness of our strategy is in our own lab. If you look at the margins, which we report, we are a public company, we're a New York Stock Exchange company, so we're transparent. You can see our margins over the last few years in the clinical lab have gone from about 34% to 42% last, in our year end we just reported. That is one of the higher margins within the diagnostic services industry. And the way we've been able to move those margins is by internalizing our own testing, providing our own internally developed tests instead of acquiring these tests and paying rack rate to those on the outside. And that is the model that we think is translatable. Our lab has been growing on revenue very nicely. Last quarter over quarter was about 13%. The businesses are now profitable, which is very important. And we are at an actual demonstration of the strategy that we are trying to export to labs around the country. So they can look at our model and base their challenge and their opportunity by viewing our particular lab and what we've been able to do with it.
Barry, can community hospitals really benefit from your system?
Absolutely. Anyone doing diagnostic testing, whether it's a hospital, an academic institution, regional lab, can benefit. We are offering an alternative to what exists today. What we are providing them, they are doing already. We are just looking to provide them the opportunity to make more money doing it. Our whole objective is not to say, as I mentioned, this is the next best, this is new. This is to replace what you're doing at a lower cost.
Would a customer be like a Quest Diagnostics, or do they do the same thing you do?
No. It could be. It could be any laboratory doing diagnostic services.
Okay.
Our platforms are proprietary. It's if everyone could do what we're doing, you would see many different low-cost systems in the market. You don't see them.
Right.
I mean, we have the intellectual property, we have the development capability, we manufacture over 25,000 products today in our system. We market those products globally. So we're fully integrated. It's very unusual to see a business that has both the service component, as we do with our lab, and the product component. I mean, just to step back, when you look at ENZO BIOCHEM, it is an integration of a life sciences company that markets about 25,000 products to academia, to clinical labs, to research, to academic institutions, to pharmaceutical companies around the globe. And at the same time, we have married that with our clinical laboratory services group, which is one of the largest clinical lab services group in our region. So it's a integrated entity that has both product development and product selling capability coupled with an entity that can provide a service component as well. So it's quite unique.
Well, that sounds amazing. And as you mentioned, you're on the big board, New York Stock Exchange. ENZ is still the stock symbol?
It is, and I think, I would encourage everyone to take a look at the performance of the stock over the last year. Last year we returned well over 100% to our shareholders. I think this year so far we're about 30 or 40% return to our shareholders. So I think our story is getting received in the marketplace. We're getting, I think, a higher recognition value, and I think it's, that's only the bellwether of what the future will bring.
Actually, it is funny. You say you are utilizing this as a major opportunity, your system, in a totally screwed up healthcare world. That's and it's going to benefit your shareholders.
As I mentioned, there's always opportunity in diversity. I mean,
Right,
in adversity, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you talk about saving any money, in the clinical setting or the doctor's office setting, that's a phenomenon. The more disjointed it is, almost the better.
Yeah, that's amazing, Charles.
Opportunities.
Yeah, you're right. It's it is amazing. Well, now, okay, Charles just mentioned doctors. Now, are they in play with all of this, or is this pretty much you're going for the hospitals, you're going for like the Quest Labs and stuff?
I mean, there are physicians' offices that may have internal labs, but they're becoming fewer and fewer.
Yeah.
The whole healthcare system is consolidating. It's, doctors today are being acquired by hospital systems. They're merging into large groups, practice groups, which are becoming more professionally managed. Or they're moving in, there's this growth of these urgent care centers, which are sprouting up and at the same time morphing into primary care centers at the same time. So, the system is evolving. Our customer is predominantly the laboratory. It could be a hospital lab, it could be a independent regional lab, it could be a local laboratory. Anyone who is providing diagnostic services for the physician or the institution, that is our customer.
Well, and I would think, as you just mentioned, with the creation of all these dock-in-the-boxes, that that could be a future client base for you, couldn't it?
Well, it's not a future base; it's a current base. I mean, we are actually starting to grow that segment of our business rather significantly. We have a number of clients that are these urgent care, you call them dock-in-a-box or urgent care centers. They're sprouting up all over. And interestingly, we can provide to them a low-cost service that is fairly rapid, and that is probably one of the faster-growing segments of our laboratory unit right now.
Yeah, they're all things considered, quality of service, quality of the actual test, all those things being equal, there is no easier sale than an economic sale.
That is our belief as well.
Yeah, and that is, clearly what, everyone from the practitioner to the urgent care services to the, mega offices with, 17 different doctors and, 5 or 6 different specializations. I mean, it's very impressive.
Now, have you? You're basically talking about a system. Are like the big monsters, like Tenet, like HCA, the big hospital owners, are they on board with ENZO?
Well, I mean, we are beginning to reach out outside of our regional area now. We've just started to take accounts from the western part of the United States. So we're reaching out, but any laboratory operator would be a potential customer for us. Any system, any operation. Again, what we are doing is providing them the opportunity to improve their cost of goods line, to improve their marginal return, and in some cases, actually utilize an approach which will give their practitioners a better medical advantage. I mean, to give you a sense, I spoke to you about this women's health panel, which was just approved. Not only is it cost efficient, but it has the potential to help physicians within their practice, because now they can screen a patient with one sample without taking multiple samples, without calling patients back, for repeats. It's a very not only cost efficient but human efficient approach. So it provides hospital-based systems who have physicians, in their practices, or routine practitioners, an ability to treat their patients more effectively and efficiently. So the cost is certainly a value add for the lab, but for the practitioner, they are getting a more efficient system.
Boy, that
Thank
sounds
you very
great.
much. Barry, thanks for the explanations and everything.
Yeah, and Barry, don't be a stranger, huh? This is it's amazing you've been able to somehow take advantage of this messed up healthcare system and really take the bull by the horns and keep growing ENZO BIOCHEM. It sounds amazing.
Very good.
All right,
All right,
Barry.
well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate
Goodbye.
the time.
All
Thanks,
right.
Barry.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I guess we're going to stay. Mike, are we staying in New York State? We just can't escape New York State today, can we?
Yes.
I can't help but think that that Pressure Bio can't do something for ENZO,
Yes.
considering their focus.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean, in order to find a solution, you have to be able to clearly identify the issue.
Yeah, I agree,
and they
Charles.
And they absolutely do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, is Andy Sealfon floating around here?
Okay, very good. Say something. Okay, let's welcome Andy Sealfon.
Hello, Andy.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I got laryngitis, so I don't sound right. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Stand in line.
No trees fall on your car?
Yeah. So now, what? You're inland in New York State.
Yeah,
Did
you're
you?
a little more rural.
Yeah. Did you feel any part of Philippe?
Yeah, outside of 3 hours of no power.
Oh, 3 hours. Poor baby.
Yep,
Yeah. Have a few weeks without it.
exactly.
Oh yeah.
Evidently, there are people in Houston who think 3 hours is great.
Yeah. Well,
Or
actually,
Florida.
believe
Or
me,
Puerto Rico.
for 3 hours is great. Well, Andy, just call Whitefish. They're not doing much now. in the wake of that Puerto Rican mess. Well, Andy, we were just talking with ENZO BIOCHEM in New York City, Barry Weiner. What's going on with you guys at RMS Medical Products?
Well, we're moving and shaking. We're rapidly deploying worldwide. We got this fantastic clearance from FDA for a wide range of uses for our Freedom System. We're now usable for any intravenous or subcutaneous medications, as long as it's labeled for use that way by the drug manufacturer, as well as the specific uses of antibiotics and immunoglobulins for subcutaneous. So we have a very unified FDA clearance, which actually requires our system to be used as a system. It's the first time that the FDA has actually recognized how these systems actually work and have cleared it as appropriate.
Boy, that sounds amazing.
So any questions about our regulatory status have been answered in spades, and we're getting the message out worldwide.
Well, you are today, that's for sure, since we're on worldwide on WPSL.com. That's phenomenal. It sounds like things are chugging away at RMS Medical. And I know that you had talked about your European growth being pretty phenomenal.
And it will continue. We have a great distributor in Germany. He's coming on strong. We're looking at new uses of our needles there for a drug called apomorphine. which is a subcutaneous medication, very popular in Europe. We're expanding. We're doing trials into in Russia, in France, in Scandinavia. We're doing a ton of trials worldwide, actually. Can you guys still hear me okay? I realize my voice is terrible.
No, you're fine. You're fine on the air. But yeah. Now, where did you mention in Europe the trials?
We're doing some in Germany, in Russia, in France, and in Scandinavia.
Wow, you're all over the place over there. Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're doing them with major drug companies. These are partnerships. In the case of Russia, we agreed to register our products in Russia specifically for their drug. And we're doing that around the world. We're working in Asia now. We have initial sales into Asia. We are registering in Japan and China and the Asian Rim. We're registering parts of our system in Brazil. So we're really on the move worldwide with this. We are recognized more and more for what we do, for the quality, for our reputation, and we're really beginning to see that work well.
Charles, questions for Andy?
Not really. I mean, I know the story pretty well. And now that there's no more FDA problems, I think that's clearly in the stock. It's one of the reasons that the stock has, had such a nice steady, steady move.
Charles, yeah, you could talk about the stock. I know Andy can't, but what does it look like?
Well, we had this long base coming into the period going back a couple of years in 2014, 2015, and then we, went up and tested the highs around 60 cents and came back down. The stock is not staying below its 200-day moving average. In other words, it's not a hindrance. It's not a falling 200-day. It's a rising 200-day. And every time that the company at the stock has had a serious pullback, it's only lasted, pretty much for that week, and it stays above the 200-day moving average and bounces. For example, the last time the stock was down at a quarter, 6 months later, it was 60 cents. I mean, you can't really ask for more of a return than that on a micro-cap company. And then after we were 60 cents, we came all the way back down in a 2-month period to about 28 cents. Well, that's exactly where the 200-day was. And we were there 6 weeks later. And since then, the only time we've been back to it was not very long ago, where it hit 35 cents. On none of these weekly moves does it pierce the 200-day and go down. So that's very supportive. The stock is up here at 52 cents, 52.2 cents. If it will go through that 60, if it would close, it actually last week had the highest close that it's had in 4 years. So that's pretty impressive. If it can continue up and close above 60 cents, that old high at 65 cents would be the only impediment from it having, a nice gain. The issue is it's been sideways for so long that when it does finally go, it should be a pretty nice move. I'll tell you a couple of stocks that had the same thing. They're not comparable in industry or size, but they are comparable in the way that the setup occurred over a 3 or 4 year period. Microsoft, everybody considered to be absolutely dead money. as it traded between, it traded between the high 20s and the mid 30s, and it went crosswise for quite a while. When it broke out above $52 through again a nice long base, multi-year, when it broke out above $52, I mean it's trading 83.68 right now. The point being that stocks that go through long consolidations tend to be people who are holders with strong hands. They're not necessarily concerned about today, tomorrow. They just, reaccumulate and reaccumulate every time it's back at support. They're the ones who get rewarded the most from this kind of a breakout. So, from my perspective, the company probably looks like a fairly, a dramatically solid 40 or 45 cent stock. And if it goes through that 62, 65 and closes up there, we could see the stock double in a reasonable period of time. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight unless there's news, but, kind of the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race.
Sure. And Andy, I would imagine, of course, the FDA blessing was huge for you.
Well, we had our clearances before, but this clarified that the FDA understood the science behind our system and finally acknowledged that the system needs to be used together. That we're not selling pumps and tubing and needles and things like that, that we're selling a system, and together, when used together, it is an outstanding performing infusion pump system.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it meets the needs of the patient, of the healthcare provider. It provides consistent, repeatable delivery rates, time after time. It's predictable, and it represents solid performance so that the patient is ensured outstanding quality. We have a saying that with our system, it ends up the patient is the only variable, which means that we can figure out how to get the perfect infusion, what we like to call a forgettable infusion with the patient with our system, which is magnificent. These patients who have immune deficiency have it for life. And giving them something that is forgettable is an outstanding achievement.
Yeah, that's very interesting you say that. It's because when you're doing this as often as you would have to do that, you would want something that is forgettable. So, yeah, that's...
Yeah, I relate to that in a different way, and that is when anybody asks me on Monday, how was your weekend? My response is uneventful, exactly the way I want it. And if the equipment is becoming forgettable and such an intricate part, the results are better. The taking of whatever the meds are is better. If there's no barrier to getting it done, then it gets done.
No pain, no side reactions,
right. Yeah.
No hassles.
You make it part of your daily routine,
It's no big deal.
Right.
It's like shaving every morning. You go do it, you're done, no big deal.
That's interesting.
It
Yeah.
just becomes part of your routine.
Yeah.
And these patients do it 1 to 2 times a week generally.
Sure. Wow. That's truly amazing, and congratulations on the stock. I mean that bodes well for you guys as well. And I know you're hardly an overnight success beginning back in 1980, but it's certainly the word's getting out, and the word is now worldwide on RMS Medical. It's kind of cool.
Are you working
true.
on any new products?
Yes, we are building new products all the time. We build variations of the product. We're working with several drug companies for our delivery of monoclonal antibodies. We're working on systems to inject needles with less pain and better control and better repeatability and less side reactions. So we are on a program of new products, constant and continuous improvement of our current products, and enhancements to deliver new drugs. One of the clarifications was that we can deliver blood plasma products in the Freedom. And so that brings up clotting factors and a host of other drugs. And we've been contacted by the pharmaceutical companies with great interest in delivering their meds in our system. Some of them want to make it a custom delivery system. So we're dealing with, at least a dozen pharmaceutical companies right now.
Wow, that's amazing news.
Literally around the world.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of, Greg, is we became an overnight sensation after just 23 years of working at it. No, because recognition within that community is, really big. And it always looks like overnight success.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've been working with some of these people for many years, but they now recognize not only our expertise and our special process, but they also recognize the extreme importance of having a fantastic way of getting their drug, their very expensive, very carefully manufactured drug. How do you get it successfully into the patient? And they don't know how to do that. And so that's the partnerships we're developing now.
Boy, that sounds amazing, Andy. So obviously the European growth, you're talking about Brazil now, in other areas of the world, plus
Asia,
obviously
Japan, China.
Yeah. Well, the China thing could be just monumental for you. I mean, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Well, as long as you don't give them the opportunity to reverse, as long as you don't give them the opportunity to reverse engineer your product.
You're bad, Charles.
No. I mean, that's the way that it is. China clearly has no concern about stealing, technology.
Yeah.
Well, our chief medical officer, Dr. Ma, was born in China.
Oh, okay.
He speaks the language. He knows the people. He knows all the regulatory authorities.
Oh, that's great.
And he assures us that these are manageable.
Well, that sounds great, Andy. Well, thanks for playing injured here. I know you've got laryngitis, but you did real well. And
I appreciate you tolerating me. Thank you, guys.
Hey, you got it.
Easy.
Okay, Andy Sealfon from RMS Medical Products, and boy, they just keep growing and growing and growing. And Charles, you're right. It's amazing how they could be in business for so long, and now all of a sudden it just seems like the word's just getting out and getting out.
And the funny thing is, Greg, that if something big happened and the stock went up 50%, people would just look at it and say, wow, this is a 75 cent or 80 cent stock, that could be a couple of dollars.
Sure.
And, that's where they start to look at it. Well, I want to mention a couple of things about the market letter accounts. We've had 4 executions this week, 4 sales of 50%, or pardon me, of 50% of the value on the 100% up rule. Every single one of those 4 executions, liquidations, came on 100% up rule, which is really phenomenal. You carry a bunch of different positions, and one works and one doesn't work, and etc. This week we have had, as I said, 4 different liquidations on the 100% rule, And
Why don't you enumerate which ones they were?
Okay, so we owned the Apple November 170 calls at 77 cents. We sold half at $1.50 and change, $1.56, I guess, $1.54. They're now $4. So we still have half the position. It costs us nothing because we took our money off the table, and they're currently worth there's $3.25 in profits sitting there. Alibaba, we owned the Alibaba 182 calls also for November. We owned them, I don't even remember, we owned them at 252. So yesterday morning we sold half at 504, and Alibaba is up another $1.25 right now, and those calls are the ones that we have left with no cost are $7.10.
Good work.
Now, Alibaba is the Chinese version of Amazon, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's going to be a competitor, but yeah.
We also have CTL, which is an old line landline company, CenturyTel, and they just got approval yesterday for their merger with Level 3. For people who don't know what Level 3 is a fiber backbone that is used for delivery for people like Netflix, all of the streaming, all of this stuff about being able to screen, to see shows on a streaming platform.
Yep.
You have to have substantially better to really enjoy it.
Yes,
all
you do.
The time.
Yeah.
And so CenturyTel, landline phone company, and Level 3, backbone company, are merging. And as I said, yesterday in the afternoon, we got Justice Department approval. The stock was up $1 and change yesterday. We had calls that I bought, I think on Friday at 52 cents. Well, 32 cents, I'm sorry. And this morning, they're 65 cents right now.
Wow. That's amazing. Charles, you're hitting the ball over the fence a lot. And folks, you got to get that newsletter from Mike King, Charles Moscowitz. It's out there. PrincetonResearch.com comes out every Sunday night. You've been listening to Money Info right here on WPSL Port St. Lucie, WPSL.com, webcaster to the world.